One of my favorite quotes is, "Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety." It was said by Benjamin Franklin. You may have heard of the guy. And it's never been so relevant in my lifetime as it is right now. Hi, my name is Tyus. I make videos about personal freedom, escaping the rat race, all of that good stuff. If you are interested in living the freest life possible, hit the subscribe button below. And one of the greatest threats to our liberty, to our freedom, is it's not police, not government, not ongoing war, but simply an idea. And that idea is security. I know it sounds a little strange, but maybe we should define security and maybe even liberty for that matter so that the rest of this video makes sense. Now, I use the term liberty and freedom pretty interchangeably, but what we're talking about is basic John Locke. John Locke's a guy from the past, he's dead now, and he came up with the concept of freedom being about life, liberty, and property, which you may have heard a very similar tune to that by the phrasing life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, that was hijacked from John Locke to be used in the United States' Declaration of Independence. So let's go into a few things that I would define liberty to be. First being freedom of movement, the basic ability, the basic right to go where you want to go. The next would be freedom to do what you want with your own body. That might include being able to use the drugs you want on your own body, or in many places you're limited with your sexual reproductive rights. And the next one would be freedom to use your property or to have property. Many places they limit, let's say, the weapons you're allowed to have, what kind of weapons you might have, or the ability to own sovereign land. Most places around the world, you can't have your own land. Next, you have freedom of labor. When people often think of the opposite of freedom, they think of slavery, and slavery is simply not having freedom of your own labor. Somebody else owns the work you do. Taxes is also a version of having a lack of freedom of labor because a government or an organization takes a part of the labor you produce. Next one is freedom of speech, which in the United States we're pretty big on. It's one of the important freedoms that we get to celebrate, but there are many places where you're not allowed to swear, or where you can't draw the Prophet Muhammad, or other things of that nature. Some places you can't tell a good joke. And then the last freedom that I like to bring up is that of freedom of thought, which might mean the freedom of religion. I'm not a religious person. However, I think it's very important that people can have whatever belief structure they want, or freedom of discrimination, discernment. People should be able to like what they like and not like what they don't like and not be forced to go the other direction. They should be able to have that right if they want it. And so those are the freedoms that I think of as freedoms. Freedom of thought, freedom of speech, freedom of labor, freedom of property. Then you've got, freedom with your body and freedom of movement. So all of those together is how I would define liberty. But I mentioned that freedom might be in jeopardy based off of the simple idea of security. And what is security? Well, it's a form of freedom too. It's freedom from fear, freedom of feeling danger, or freedom from feeling any kind of threat. That is what security is. How does that play together? This month, Dr. Fauci was asked, when will Americans get their freedoms back? To which he answered, I don't look at this as a liberty thing, but as a public health thing. You see, even Dr. Fauci interchangeably uses the word liberty and freedom. I'm not alone here. But he brings up a really, really valid point, that in order to keep people safe from COVID, we've got to sacrifice certain liberties to get there. And I'll give you some examples of some basic ones that a lot of people don't even notice. One is we have the freedom of the press in the United States. However, recently, the press has not been able to report about matters at the United States-Mexico border. We also have the freedom of religion, but people have been denied the ability to go to their churches. We have the freedom of assembly. However, that has been denied as well because of risk of spreading COVID. These are all First Amendment rights. One way that you could think about the balance between freedom and security is by thinking about the login password that you might have on your cell phone. If you're like me, you try and keep it short because it makes it convenient. But what that does is, while that gives you a lot of access, a lot of freedom, a lot of convenience, it makes your phone insecure. On the other hand, you could put in a really, really long and sophisticated, complicated password, which would make your phone incredibly secure, but very, very inconvenient, very, very difficult to use whenever you wanted to use it. That is the balance between security and freedom. The real question to ask ourselves is, what is the threshold we're willing to accept? We could lock ourselves in a bank vault if we wanted to be completely secure, so nobody else could get in, and we're very safe inside of that, but we can't go anywhere. We have no freedom anymore. We actually sacrifice our safety all the time for our own freedom. When you get into a car every single day, maybe you get into a car every single day, you risk your own safety. Believe it or not, every single year, about 40,000 people die in cars, and another 4.4 million people are injured in car accidents. So a car is inherently unsafe, but it provides us with enough convenience, enough freedom, enough liberty that we go, you know what, this is worth it. We're gonna take the risk. We have to decide for every single action, every single situation in our life, what is worth the risk and what safety are we willing to put in place to limit that freedom. It's also important to point out that I believe this can be used for some very nefarious purposes. For example, during 9/11, the World Trade Center towers falling, this became the catalyst for the Patriot Act being signed into law, which enacted mass surveillance all around the United States. Now, the idea being that, hey, yes, we're going to surveil our citizens, we're going to look into everybody's browsers and see what they're doing, but it's going to help us find and eliminate other terrorists that will make us unsafe. We essentially sacrificed our freedom of privacy in order to get some perceived security. However, I think what we did in the process was we gave other people tremendous power over us, and we gave away a freedom that we'll never get back. I want to provide Benjamin Franklin with a little feedback. I don't agree with his idea that you have to sacrifice one thing for another. I don't think freedom and security are mutually exclusive ideas. I don't think this is a teeter-totter where as your freedom goes up, your security goes down, and as your security goes up, your freedom goes down. I think there are situations where that definitely happens, but for the most part, it's possible to have both. Let me give you some examples. There are a lot of people that carry a handgun every day, and they do that oftentimes to celebrate their Second Amendment freedom to be able to bear arms and be able to protect themselves. Well, being able to protect themselves is not only a celebration of their freedom, but it's also the ability to be more secure in their situation. Another example that might not be as contentious as the Second Amendment would be that of biometrics. Rather than unlocking a phone with a passcode, nowadays you can just look at a camera and it can see it and unlock it, and it can be more secure than a passcode because it's a lot harder to take somebody's eyeballs than it is to copy their password. Gosh, I hope nobody takes somebody's eyeballs to copy it. But anyways, point is, it makes it more secure and it makes it faster. It's more convenient. It gives you greater freedom. So perhaps the solution to this problem isn't about making compromises, but about innovation and finding new solutions to common problems. Perhaps the dichotomy between security and freedom is false to begin with, because I'm not entirely convinced that security is ever really a real thing. For example, you might hang out with a lot of people, and that could put you at risk of potentially contracting a disease from them or getting into a conflict with one of them, but making yourself isolated also puts you at risk. It puts you at risk of depression or not being able to trade ideas or not being able to interact and feeling isolated and sad and alone. Another example could be giving the government a tremendous amount of power so that they can protect you, giving them a lot of tax money, increasing the police force, and increasing national security so that they have tremendous protection. Well, believe it or not, that provides a great deal of risk. We've seen tyrannical governments in the past. But the alternative of saying, well, let's have no government means that, well, now there's no ultimate force to go to. Who decides things in a court of law? It opens up a whole other set of challenges and problems. In both cases, there are risks. And in perhaps every case in life, there's risk. Maybe the most moral solution to this problem is to let everyone determine what their own tolerance is between having a really safe life and having a really free life. Some people are going to be very, very fine living a day-to-day life that is very, very secure but doesn't provide them with a lot of liberty. For other people, they might want to live right on the razor's edge. They might want to have a great deal of excitement and all kinds of thrills, but they know that there's going to be inherent danger with maybe bungee jumping on a regular basis. The problem comes by deciding what other people's levels of tolerance should be without it being their own consent. Restricting other people based off of what is right for you is probably never going to be the right solution. At least not the moral solution, because every single person's life is unique to their own. The important factor is to tolerate people that don't necessarily share the same values, the same views as you. For some people, they're going to value security more than freedom. For others, they're going to value freedom more than security. But maybe to go beyond just tolerating somebody else's views is to celebrate our diversity and the fact that we're not all the same, and that provides us with a richer and more beautiful blanketed landscape of individuals. It helps enrich us all. And if you're enjoying this content, please share it with somebody you care about, you like, that might have the same frame of mind, or somebody whose mind you might want to change with content like this. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already, and I bet you haven't, so do it. And I hope to see you on the next video. Bye.